Building off of the power of sensation, we have a couple of other senses that we have not yet talked about. So we've gone over vision in great detail, hearing, and we've also gone through touch. We also have taste and smell, which are highly, highly linked to our emotional experiences. So we're going to be talking about that more in this chapter. So smell is actually a chemosignal. It plays a central role in motivated and emotional behavior. And this harkens back to when we were evolving as a species and what we needed, the primary information that we needed for survival was information that was linked with sustaining ourselves in terms of food and sustaining our species, which would have been reproduction and sex. And so the taste and smell have very, very strong links with both of those elements of our survival. Briefly run through these, identifying group members, people that are more similar to us in terms of appearance, characteristics are actually going to be more likely to smell like us. Marking territories is really more for animals. Cats and dogs will try to mark their territory through urinating. This will be able to pass on show that this territory is claimed even when they're not present. Identifying favorite and forbidden foods, things that we like, that we want to have more of. They smell really good. Things that smell distasteful are foods that we should avoid that would probably be not digested well to our body. Think about the smell of sour milk. If milk is soured, then we smell it and we are not going to taste it. It would be something that would probably, we would become ill. And then we have the associations that we make between odors and tastes and emotional events. So we can have the smell of home that could be something that feels really good. The smell of apple pie, we can have very strong emotions and memories that are also associated with odors. Because of all of these four elements above, emotion and taste, which we'll talk about shortly, play a fundamental role in the biology of emotion and motivated behavior. And here's how your receptors for smell. There are chemicals in the air we breathe, and they dissolve into the mucosa in our nose to interact with cilia here. These are the cilia that are involved in smell. And we have metatropic activation of a specific G protein. This leads to an opening of sodium channels and a change in membrane potential. So if you think back to the different types of receptors we have, so one of them was metatropic receptors that when activated, it does not cause an immediate change in sodium ions or influx in sodium ions at that particular location. So it does not cause a IPSP or an IPSP or an EPSP at that specific location, but it causes the release of a G protein, and that G protein will then cause the opening of sodium channels or changes in membrane potential. And so that's how this works with the sense of smell, that the air molecules, they attach to these particular receptors, and then the G protein is released, and that information, the G protein is sent up, and it will cause an action potential, and that scent information is carried into your brain. Here's the olfactory pathways. So once you sense information, it comes in through your nose. The olfactory receptor cells project to the olfactory bulb, which is right here. This is at the very base of your orbitofrontal cortex. And the olfactory cells, they target the amygdala and the piriform cortex. It does not go through the thalamus, okay? So the olfactory nerve does not go through the thalamus. It's one of the few that does not go through the thalamus. What happens is it goes to the amygdala and the piriform cortex, and then it travels from those to the thalamus and orbitofrontal cortex and the hypothalamus. You can see right through here. And so the fact that scent is probably, I think it's the only sense that does not travel through the thalamus. Basically then the thalamus is a sort of a sensory relay station, and it can also have some gating potential. And so it's actually very hard to stop smells from affecting you. So you can close your eyes, you can also try to stop all sorts of sensory information, but smell is one of the things that's very, very hard not to prevent the processing of that information. And it has very, very direct connections to key regions of the brain. So once it enters the brain as part of the amygdala and the piriform entorhinal cortex. Then it travels up again to the thalamus and the orbital cortex and the hypothalamus. So then it can still project to many, many regions of the brain. It just has a slightly different pathway to get there. Now, related to our sense of smell are pheromones. Pheromones are biochemicals that are released by one animal that act as chemosignals and can affect the physiology or behavior of another animal. So unlike odors, pheromones are detected by a special olfactory receptor system known as the vomeronasal organ. So this vomeronasal organ is connected to the amygdala and the hypothalamus. And so again, it has very direct connections with really key emotional and hormonal regions of the brain. The amygdala is highly involved in identifying significant or relevant emotional information in the environment. And the hypothalamus, of course, as you learned from Dr. Bennett, is highly involved in the release and processing of hormones. And humans actually have a surprisingly acute sensitivity to smells that are behaviorally relevant. And smells that are behaviorally relevant, there's going to be food, and there's also sex and finding a mate. And as much as aspects of these in our culture are sometimes sort of viewed as not as culturally appropriate, they still are very much a part of our evolutionary origins, and they are most of the time some of the things that we feel the most emotional towards, that are the most significantly impactful things in our lives, are the process of engaging in physical intimacy in terms of sex and finding a mate. And so these are highly, highly behavioral relevant aspects of our life. And we, of course, have a huge amount of stimulus processing that goes on to aid in the detection of finding an appropriate mate and engaging in copulatory behaviors that would propagate your own genes in the human species. So to give you an idea of how pheromones might work, and we'll talk about them a little more, I have another video to show you.
Well, are you looking for love and failing to find it? In the past, retailers have sold love potions that claim to attract the opposite sex, even though none of it's been proven to work. So we were curious about the new batch of potions with the secret ingredient pheromones. They're in some of the new Christmas fragrances, but do they work? Bill Ritter did a little experiment to see if they're too good to be true.
They are identical twins, 23-year-olds Sarah and Bridget. They're getting ready to go out to answer a question. Can you make yourself more attractive just by using an over-the-counter chemical that's peddled as something of a love potion? Another set of identical twins is also helping us, 25-year-olds Dave and Paul. They check their hair and put on some scent that we've given them. Both sets of twins meet up later and head to their final destination, a bar in downtown New York City. The twins have volunteered to participate in a 2020 experiment.
Jim, nice to meet you. I'm Sarah.
A speed dating experiment to help us find out if these chemicals, called pheromones, actually work.
That's where I'm at right now. Exactly.
Pheromones are natural and odorless. Many animals secrete them to attract mates. But pheromones are also synthesized and marketed for humans. And if you believe the package label, they enhance sexual attractiveness. Now, pheromones have been around for years, but now new studies and new claims make pheromones hotter than ever.
I think our product is the only product that has any proof behind its claims.
Biologist Winifred Cutler is perhaps the nation's leading pheromone champion. She claims her pheromones work for 75% of the people who use them. The price for 1/6 of an ounce of her pheromones, sold through a company she calls the Athena Institute, is $100.
Our pheromones are sexual attractants. They do make the wearers more sexually attractive. That's very clear.
And that's where our identical twins come in, because with them, the whole package is the same. What happens to one should happen to the other.
So what do you expect to happen tonight?
In the back of your head, you're thinking, this is, this stuff really works. And,
Right, I'm wearing the secret formula.
Exactly. Like nobody else has this.
Right.
For our experiment, we gave all the twins a scent, but only one twin in each set got the scent with Dr. Cutler's pheromones mixed in, and we didn't tell them who had this secret weapon.
The gentleman, when I ring this bell every 5 minutes, you're going to rotate one table up. I'm Sarah.
David.
Mohammed, I'm Bridget.
10 different dates, each one lasting just 5 minutes.
Okay, gentlemen, it's time to rotate.
Would the pheromones make a difference?
So what about yourself, Aaron?
Gentlemen up one, please.
Nice meeting you.
I was born in Queens.
Well, it's good to meet you.
This is your final date.
At the end of the night, we tallied the results. Of the 10 dates, 9 men wanted to see Sarah again, but Bridget attracted just 5. As for the male twins, Dave got 10 women interested in him. Paul had only 6. So who was wearing the pheromones? Sarah and Dave, the two who scored better.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're thinking. Why would attractive 20-somethings even need pheromones? After all, it's those of us who are no longer in our 20s who could probably use a little help.
So I hope you liked that video. You can watch the second one on your own if you want to. And this is a really fun example of the role of pheromones. Normally we would not have the opportunity to try out sort of blind studies with twins and all that kind of stuff. But it is relatively suggestive. Keep in mind though, this is not any sort of controlled study. There might have been also differences between the twins that by chance could have created those same set of results. So it's not any sort of marketing video or anything like that. Don't go out and spend money on pheromones. Really, what I wanted to point out was this whole other element that we oftentimes don't think about when we are engaging in emotional interactions that we have with significant others, that smell actually plays a very strong role. So if you're in if you are in a relationship with a significant other, then it's highly likely that your smell has meaning to them and that their smell has meaning to you. And their smell can signal things to you in your body that occur without a whole lot of thought. And their smell can signal things to their body without you having to think about it a whole lot. The smell can also change. Your smell can also change in accordance with other monthly cycles that occur between men and women. And so as much as we still, as humans, don't really have sort of a particular time of the year that we would go into heat like other types of animals would, there is some evidence that suggests that our pheromones change right around the time that females would be more likely to be able to produce offspring at where they are in their cycle. And that smell can translate to their significant others who would then find them a bit more attractive at that particular time. And so I'll actually be talking about this a little bit more when I talk about innate releasing mechanisms